My name is Jared Lubert, and I'm a forensic sales engineer with Belkasoft. Also the founder of Gateway Forensics, a digital forensic company located here in Maryland. And thank you for joining us for this demonstration on Belkasoft Evidence Center X Mobile Edition. So the workflow for today is going to be to walk through about 8 PowerPoint slides and kind of give you an overview of what Belkasoft Evidence Center X is. And then we'll dive into the product itself, give you as much screen time as possible. Now, I'm going to give you kind of a generic presentation, but I want you to know what is available specifically in the mobile edition. So I'll touch a couple slides and then I'll annotate, hey, this is included or hey, this is not included in the mobile edition of Belkasoft Evidence Center X. All right, let's begin. So what is Belkasoft Evidence Center X? Well, it's an all-in-one digital forensic and instant response software product by Belkasoft. We cover 4 major branches: mobile, computer, memory, and cloud. As this is a mobile edition demonstration, I will be focusing solely on the mobile aspects. There is another edition that's the highest edition, the corporate customers. Now this is corporate edition. It's the instant investigations module that allows investigators to examine how intrusions took place. Also offers a cross-case analysis. And what that does is it queries a centralized database for artifacts that may have hit on a prior case to a current case. So it'll let you know what that connection is, whether it's the same phone number, hash from a specific artifact, or contact, etc. All right, we're going to dive straight into the Android acquisition methods. So you can see we have a pretty healthy list of Android acquisition methods. Starting with the very top one, the advanced ADB acquisition. What that is a combination of the 3 other acquisition options that utilize ADB. That's going to be your standard ADB backup, your agent-based backup, and your APK downgrade. Again, all 3 of those utilize ADB, and instead of doing an acquisition one at a time, you can actually do all 3 all together with the advanced ADB acquisition option. Now, in order to use any of these ADB acquisition options, the phone must be unlocked, developer options enabled, and USB debugging enabled. Next, the Android file system copy, and the one right below it, the physical dump. Note, these require a rooted Android device in order to obtain these acquisitions. It is important to note that Belkasoft does not root Android devices, but we do have the ability to acquire already rooted devices. Next is an agent-based backup. Again, that's going to utilize ADB. It's going to sideload an application onto the device that you're trying to acquire. You will be able to acquire a backup of that device via the application that's loaded on. Upon completion of the acquisition, the application will be removed from the device. Next is the PTP-MTP protocols. So that's your picture transfer protocol, media transfer protocol. With this acquisition, you can expect to receive pictures, videos, audio files, and maybe a few applications. The following 3 acquisition options are based on vulnerabilities of the chipsets. So those are MediaTek, Qualcomm, and Spreadtrum. You'll notice here that there is also an agent-based MediaTek acquisition. So that's going to utilize the vulnerability on the MediaTek chipset to put an agent on the device and get a full file system copy utilizing that agent. Again, the MediaTek, Qualcomm, and Spreadtrum all take advantage of chipsets in specific devices. APK downgrade, again, that's going to utilize ADB. But what that's going to do is downgrade an application that may no longer support backing up their users' data. So we can downgrade these applications to a time whenever you could actually pull that information with a backup. And upon completion of the acquisition, the application will be renewed to its original version. The next acquisition option is Screen Capture, and this works with any application on an Android device. When it first came out, it was specifically for supporting Signal, Telegram, and WhatsApp, the chat threads. With enough interest, we made it to where this screen capture would work on any application on any Android device. So you tell it how many times you want to scroll, and it will do that for you. Whether you want to scroll up, whether you want to scroll down, you just have to browse to that specific location on the device that you're acquiring in order to start the screen capturing. And this is really good for that forensic soundness, as screenshots will not work or hold up in court. Okay, moving on to iOS acquisition methods. So here is a pretty solid list for iOS acquisition methods. There's the standard iTunes backup. This just requires the latest version of iTunes be installed on your forensic workstation. We do support a full logical copy for jailbroken iOS devices, supporting the latest jailbreaks such as Checkrain, Uncover, and Odyssey. Next is Checkmate on Windows, including a before first unlock and after first unlock mode and lifting USB restricted mode. Now, it is important to note here that purchasing X Mobile Edition, you will not get the Checkmate extraction option. It is the only thing that is not included in the Mobile Edition. So if you would like Checkmate, you will have to go to the X Forensic Edition, which is the next step up, which will give you access to X Computer, the cloud acquisition options, hold disk encryption detection, as well as the Checkmate acquisition option. Now, the Checkmate acquisition option will give you a full file system copy for any iOS device with A5 through A11 chipsets. So that's going to be your iPhone 5S through iPhone X, as well as iPad 7 through iPad Air. Next is an agent-based acquisition. This is going to put an agent onto your device with the help of an Apple Developer ID. This will give you a full file system copy for any iOS device ranging from 10.3 to 14.3. Also, to note that you can also retrieve the keychain file for iOS versions up to and including 13.7. Now, you'll see on the slide that there's a paid versus free. Originally, we only had the option for a paid Apple Developer ID, and this is not through Belkasoft. This is simply by browsing to Apple Developer website and signing up for a paid Apple Developer ID. This cost $99 a year. Now, people didn't like that they had to pay this $99 in order to use this agent-based acquisition, and so we developed a free version, free Apple Developer ID version for the agent-based acquisition. Now, what's the difference? Well, with the paid version, you can utilize that paid Apple Developer ID through your forensic workstation to put an agent on the device without turning the internet on the device you're trying to acquire. The free version, on the other hand, and again, this is less forensically sound, it's only there because people didn't like the fact that they had to pay that $99. What you have to do here is actually turn the internet on the phone that you're trying to acquire in order to push the agent onto that device. So those are the two options for obtaining a full file system copy from iOS versions 10.3 to iOS versions 14.3. Next is the AFC, the Apple File Conduit. So this is just like your MTP and PTP for Android devices. This is going to give you your pictures, your videos, your audio files. The final option here is crash reports. This is a goldmine of information for system files, such as IP addresses, connections, and so on. Another good utilization for this acquisition would be to see if you could identify an application that was on a device at an earlier time that's no longer on the phone itself. Next is the supported file systems and operating systems. So this is really just important to note here if you were going to get X Forensics, because this lists all of the different file systems and operating systems that are supported when it comes to Belkasoft Evidence Center X. So you can see we have APFS, so Mac, DMG, Linux, in-case image files, logical in-case image files, FTK, X-Ways, Atolas, all supported inside Belkasoft X. You can also see that we support Windows phones, Apples, Blackberries, Androids. So this is kind of the we play well with other slide. Moving on to the next slide is supported mobile device images. Loading in any type of mobile device image that you have. Starting at the top, you can see we can accept gray key dumps, tar image files, full file system backups from jailbroken devices, iTunes backups, Android backups, Huawei, Xiaomi, BlackBerry can all be loaded into Belkasoft X. The interesting one here is we can also load in third-party tools such as TWRP dumps, oxygen files, and UFED physical and logical image files. We can also load in hardware dumps for chip-offs and JTAGs. Next is the supported artifacts and features. So out of the box, Belkasoft X supports over 1,500 different types of artifacts. You also have the ability to carve and recover deleted and hidden artifacts. So with that being said, I want to kind of dive into what that means for you. So Belkasoft X supports free lists in SQLite database. So if something is marked for deletion on the device and has not yet been rolled over in the SQLite database, Belkasoft X can determine that a message, picture, what have you, is in a free list. So it was marked for deletion by the user. So while it's not visible to the user any longer, it's still in that SQLite database. We have the ability to pull that out and show you that it came from that free list. We also support write-ahead logs and journal files. So things that have not yet been committed to the actual SQLite database, but are preparing to be committed in that write-ahead log and journal file. So we'll pull those out and say, hey, we found these inside write-ahead logs or journal files. Next, we do have the ability to process artifacts in RAM, unallocated space, backups, so much more. So we have the ability to analyze pictures and videos. We can analyze for faces. We can group those faces into facial groupings. That way we don't have to search through all of the pictures looking for that one particular face that we're looking for. We also have skin detection and pornography detection with the ability to blur pictures that are detected as pornography. With that being said, we can also unblur the faces of the blurred photos to see who's in the picture without actually looking at the full picture itself. Finally, we have gun detection and text detection. The text detection utilizes OCR in over 50 different languages. So this is a really nice feature. If you run this OCR, it will pull all text out of the pictures, and you'll be able to search through the global search function for text that was pulled out of pictures. Okay, moving on to the product additions and features. Again, we're focusing solely on X Mobile for this one, but I wanted to show you the other options that were available. Again, we have our focused additions. These are just like X Computer is meant mainly for individuals who only analyze computers or laptops. X Mobile is meant for those who only analyze smartphones. And so if you want to be able to, say, acquire an iPhone and then acquire an iCloud backup, you would need the X Forensic Edition in order to unlock that cloud feature. So with X Forensics, you're going to get everything minus the incident investigations module and the cross-case analysis, and that's what sets apart Corporate Edition and X Forensic Edition. For pricing questions, you can reach out to James or Addison, and they'll be able to help you with that. Next is Contact Slide. So my information's on here under support as jl@belkasoft.com, as well as the support phone number. I will bring this back up at the end of the presentation today, but I wanted to point out who's who in the zoo. So JC and AC at Belkasoft.com behind sales, again, will be your trial and quote point of contact. And if you have technical questions, you can reach out to me at jl@Belkasoft.com or the support phone line underneath. Okay, let's dive into Belkasoft X Mobile Edition. Okay, so upon clicking the Belkasoft X application, this is the splash screen that you'll be presented with. We have a create case and an open case. So if I select create case, you can see that I can put in the name of the case, where I want to store it, what time zone I'm in, and you can change this to whatever you want it to be, wherever you're at. Put your name, as well as a description of the case. Now, you can actually change most of this information at any point in time on the dashboard of Belkasoft X. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel. And this time I'm going to do open case. I'm going to open up the last case that I have. So I'm opening up a drug trafficking case. It's a pretty large case. It's got a lot of different data sets loaded in, and you can kind of see how quickly we're actually able to open pre-indexed cases. Okay, just like that, we are loaded and ready to go. But I'm going to jump back into the home screen, and I want to dive into the settings. So the settings is going to be where you're going to tailor how you want Belkasoft X to perform. So I select settings. The first screen you'll see is the general screen, where my application is being stored, a temp folder for opening up things inside of Belkasoft X. You'll also notice that there's a scalable bar for CPU cores and memory cache. So you have the ability to change how many CPUs that you want to utilize for indexing the case. And then you have a scalable bar that shows you how much memory you have. This is going to default to about 30% of the available RAM. But you can assign as many CPU cores as you would like. I would recommend for higher end stations, if you have, say, like 64 cores that you want to use, we would definitely recommend using maybe 60 and doing 120 gigs of RAM if you have that kind of capability. So at least 2 gigs per core if you have the option. If you don't, it's kind of a smaller system like this, it will automatically default to 30% for memory cache. Okay, you have the ability to always open the last case instead of doing the open case like I did, and the ability to check for updates automatically. If you don't want to check for updates automatically and you want to do it manually, you just come down here into the bottom left hand side of the screen and select check updates. Moving on to appearance. If you hit the language drop down button, you can see that there are multiple languages and you can switch the entire user interface to this language. You can change the font size, whether you have, say, good eyes or bad eyes, you can change it, whatever fits best for you. We have 2 different themes, a dark theme and a light theme. We're currently in dark. And you can change your date, time formats, and default coding from these locations as well. Moving into the analysis profiles. Think of these as preset artifact lists. So if you are commonly doing a triage, you could set up these profiles to where a preset mix of artifacts will already begin processing on the case when you load it in, instead of individually selecting different artifact types and formats to index. So you can set these up. You don't have to use them. You can change them at any point in time. They're really just there to kind of help you get started quickly. Coming to the bookmark tab, this is where you're going to change your category names. You'll notice that there are 10 different categories, and you can edit the names of the categories. Now, this doesn't mean you only get 10 bookmarks. You could have 5,000 bookmarks under one category if you wanted to. Things that don't change: the colors and the hotkeys. So if you want to quickly assign a category to an artifact, you can press the hotkey. But again, keep in mind, you can have as many bookmarks as you want under one category. So these are very top level categories for bookmarks. Moving into carving, if something is not supported inside Belkasoft X, but you have, say, a header or footer or file extension and you want to carve for that throughout the image, you can come in here and create this carver signature. So the example that I have here is from a Bitcoin wallet. We had found evidence of a shredded Bitcoin wallet, and so we found a known good Bitcoin wallet, found a common characteristic in the header, pulled that out, and used that to carve for another Bitcoin wallet on the system image. Moving over to pictures. Face detection and skin detection have sensitivity levels. While we don't have, say, percentages for sensitivity, we do have less, medium, and more false positives. So this is where you'll come change in those sensitivity levels. If you did choose to analyze pictures detected as pornography, you can blur those here, and you can unblur the faces here as well. If I uncheck this blur these pictures, the do not blur faces goes away. Now, you also have the video, so if you want to break your frames per second and frame similarity out, you can do that from here. And if you would like to scan, say, an entire data set all the way down to a single file against VirusTotal, you can do that by creating a personal API key here and pasting it into this location. And there are steps on how to get this key by following this link. Okay, that pretty much does it for the Settings tab. So now I'm going to jump into the Product Reference Guide. The Product Reference Guide, double click, will open up a 236-page user help guide. So this is really good for jumping specifically to a problem. You can Control F, but these are also hyperlinks. So if I'm having trouble with an online activation of the product, I can click that and then follow the step-by-step guide to get the product activated. Again, check for updates. We'll just check for the latest version and say you're using the latest version. Okay. And going to these videos here in the center, these are just little 3 to 5 minute quick tutorial videos to get you started in the right direction, all voiced over by the Vice President of Sales, James Cooksey. Jumping over to the far right, the license information. If you want to know what modules you have available to you inside Belkasoft X, this is where they would be. Now, you will not have checkmate, you will not have cloud or computer or disk decryption, encryption detection, file decryption with the X mobile. So all those would be listed over not available modules. Okay, now I'm going to jump into the dashboard. So I had mentioned that you would be able to change your case properties at pretty much any time throughout the case, and you can do that in the top left-hand corner of the dashboard. See these little pencils next to the cases? You can change the name, who the investigator is, time zone, so on and so forth. Jumping over to the middle of the screen for now is our data sources. So right now they are all collapsed, and I have a show nested data sources checked. So nested data sources are data sources that are found within other data sources that I've loaded in. So you'll notice here that I have it checked, and looking down at the bottom of our data source screen, we can see that there are 3 data sources that were pulled out of the drug trafficking case.e01 file. So this is kind of a new display inside Belkasoft X. It would just have the data source name and how many artifacts it have, but we made it a little bit easier to be able to see where that data source came from by graying out the initial source before the actual data source. If you do not want to see these, you can simply uncheck these data sources, but you are losing out on artifacts. A drop-down will show you how many artifacts that it found. You can double-click these Analyze buttons. They'll take you to the Task tab, and that'll tell you how everything went inside of that specific task. Jumping back into the dashboard, these are hyperlinks, so I can jump to these artifacts directly. Okay, next is the Actions pane. We'll start with Add Data Source. We can add a data source from this location, or we can go up here to the little blue bubble in the top right-hand corner and add a data source there as well. Now, I can add existing, and that's something, say I've already acquired the image, and because you'll have mobile edition, this is what you'll have available. A mobile and folder. So selecting mobile, I can go into my browser, and you can see all the different types of supported mobile images. Okay. Going into acquire, you would have a mobile available. We select mobile, Android, and this is the kind of the new workflow where you can select the specific device that you're looking for. If the one you want is not found, you can do an Android generic. Select next and select your acquisition option. If I go Apple, same thing, select the device that you want to work on. Let's just say Apple iPhone 7. And again, with X Mobile Edition, you will not have access to the checkmate-based image acquisition. Selecting back. Okay, and that was adding the data source. Next up on the list is searching artifacts. So this is going to be your global search option across Belkasoft X. Select Search Artifacts, and here I'll enter in a word or a phrase, whether or not I want to treat it as regular expression. I can insert a word list at any point throughout the case. I don't have to reprocess the case in order to search for those keywords. I can just do it straight from here. A predefined search. This is a running list that is constantly being updated. So if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, but you have a general idea, we do have these predefined search options available for you. All data sources. So selecting a data source, you can actually say, hey, I only actually want to look through this Android backup. And then the types of artifacts to search for will change based on what data source you selected. So if I go in here and say, okay, show me all data sources, you'll see I have a much longer list of artifacts that are available. And if I jump back to, let's just say this page file because I know it's small, it'll only show me artifacts that are available in that page file. So that'll really speed up your processing time when it comes to searching across your entire case. Next is create a report. You can do this at any time. You can do it right after you've indexed the case, or you can do it upon completion of tagging and bookmarking, etc. So you can see a pretty extensive list here of supported target formats, and we do have the support for Project VIX 1.3 and 2.0, and KML for Google Earth overlays, and then your pretty standard digital forensic software reports. You can choose where you want to store that report, whether or not you want to open the report when it's completed. And clicking advanced options will actually give you the options to really tailor your report to exactly how you want it to look. What kind of encoding you want to have, whether you want to sort your artifacts or not, who it was generated by, whether or not you want your company's logo on the report, how you would like to split up your artifacts. You can do, do you want everything in one file? Do you want one file per data type? So this is really where you can get really granular with your report writing. Files. If you want to include pictures that were detected as pornography, you can blur them and include them on the report. You can also have a copy of embedded files or attachments in a target folder next to the report for hyperlink situations on, say, like a PDMF or HTML report. Go into columns, and again, because we just loaded this up, we didn't tag anything. This is really just going to be, hey, give me everything. And you can say, hey, for SMS, I want only these options. So you can pick and choose what you want by selecting these arrows, sending them back and forth. And you can do the sorting options if you want time at the top. Again, this is really just how you want the report to look. And again, you have the folders option here at the end, whether or not you want to create subfolders. Do you want everything in one folder, or do you want everything to have its own folder? So you can make that option selection here. Select cancel and get out of this. Moving into export to evidence reader. So this is going to give you the option to share a data source with someone who does not have access to Belkasoft Evidence Center X. So if you've used any other digital forensic products where you've been able to share a portion of a case with somebody so that they could, tag, bookmark, create reports based on what you gave them, this is exactly what that will do, and it is free for you to share with whoever you would like. So again, you can get very, very granular. So if I want to share, say, just videos, I can drop this down, and from the videos, out of all of these, I actually only want them to have the videos that were listed in my video dataset. So I select the videos, select next, and it says where do you want to store it, and it'll create that case that you can share with whoever needs that extra data source. So I highly recommend including a copy of Evidence Reader inside of that folder. That way, whenever you send them this packed up deliverable, they can just double click the case file that's created, and it'll open up with that Evidence Reader that's inside that folder. Select cancel and get out of there. Create a key dictionary is just going to basically do a strings of your entire image and try to pull out potential passwords that you could later use to brute force another data source. Preparing log files is going to be for if you're having issues with the product. You can select prepare log files. It'll create a zip folder that you can send to support@belkasoft.com, and they can help you bypass kind of any of the issues you're having with your product. Delete case, self-explanatory. Down here in the left is automatic searches. So this is regular expression. It's always going to be here, and you don't have to use it, but again, it's really just here to help an examiner get started in the right direction, as these are commonly looked for in investigations. And as I mentioned, this is regular expression, so it may not be 100% all the time. Anything that matches the criteria of an IP address will fall into this range. So you can see that this bridge 4.0.0.0 matches an IP address format, so that's why it is here. But there are actual IP addresses in here, so if you're looking for something IP address related, this might be a good place to start your search. Okay, moving over to the right-hand side. This is just going to give you kind of an idea of what is in your entire case. Out of all of your data sources combined, it looks like Opera has the highest number of artifacts. The Opera application has the highest number of artifacts from any other application on the device. And you can scroll down on this list to see that a Kiwi wallet actually has the lowest number of artifacts based on application. Now, scrolling down a little bit further, you can see that we have an artifacts tab, and this is going to be the highest number of artifacts regardless of application out of all of your data sources. Now, I can look at them in grid view like I'm doing right now, or I can open it up in circle view. It's really just your preference, but these are hyperlinked and you can select them, and it'll take you directly to the artifacts tab. So now that we are in the artifacts tab, I'm going to start with the left-hand side of the screen. You can see that we have a structure and an overview. The overview is going to be a combination of all of your data sets, all of the artifacts from those data sets combined together. So say I go into browser data and select cookies. I can select an artifact, look over here on the right hand side and say, okay, this came out of the drug trafficking case.e01 file. Well, that's really good, but what if I wanted to check something else out? Okay, so it looks like this particular one came out of an Android backup. So again, this is a combination of all of your data sources together in an overview tab. If you want to break them down individually by data set, you would come over to structure. Let me go ahead and collapse all of these so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so now you can see all of your data sets loaded in together. So if you want to branch down into these specific data sets, this is where you would do that. So let's go ahead and go into the E01. Again, all of our nested data sources that were found inside of the drug trafficking case. Let's bust open the NTFS volume here. And now if I want to go into browsers specifically relating to this NTFS volume, I can do that from here. Looking at the screen here at the bottom, this is going to be where you can actually analyze your data, get into the data itself. Now you can see we have a hex viewer down here at the bottom, and you can scroll down here to see any sort of conversions you may need. You can also bust open this hex viewer into a full screen. You can change how many rows and columns you have available in the viewable screen. I can highlight something that looks important to me and bookmark it. I can go to this little pencil and say, okay, here's the bookmark that I just created. Let's edit it. And I can say, this is why I think that this bookmark was important. So say I type something meaningful in there and select OK, and select OK again. Now if I am going somewhere far off from where I was just at inside this hex, I can actually click this pencil, select my bookmark, and choose Go to Bookmark. And then I'm right back where I was. So the next one you'll see here is a SQLite viewer. Selecting the SQLite viewer allows me to browse the SQLite data here in the bottom of the screen, or again bust it out to a full screen where you can view the data within the SQLite database and the structure of the SQLite database. Okay, moving into, let's say, pictures. So let's go into our pictures. See, we have the item text, so text we were able to pull out of pictures, the hex viewer of the pictures, as well as a picture preview. If I go into cloud services, see that I have some emails here from an Emily Brent. And if I go to Google Maps, I have a bunch of latitude and longitude. So if I want to open these up on a map, I can select them, right click, show checked items on map, and it will open up the built-in map within Belkasoft X. You can zoom in on the map, you can zoom out, you can scale the map, you can hover and select the artifact itself. It'll show you everything it knows about that particular artifact. You can choose show on artifacts, and it brings you directly back to where that artifact originated from inside the artifacts tab. Now, what I want to do here is I actually want to analyze the pictures. So say I forgot to analyze pictures while I was setting up my case, I can simply right click on the pictures tab, analyze pictures, and choose, say, detect text. So now I'm going to start analyzing these pictures and pulling the text out of the pictures themselves. So if I jump into my task tab and scroll up to the top, you'll see that detecting text is starting up, and it'll let me know when it's complete. So it's extracting data. It's going to take a little bit of time, but it's relatively fast. For 132 pictures, we'll see how long it takes us to pull the text out of these pictures. Okay, it says it completed successfully, so that was 32 seconds. Very quick from start to finish. Let's go back into our artifacts tab. It's like, okay, now we looked like we pulled these items, we analyzed these pictures for text, so where are they? Well, what we're going to do now is jump back into the overview tab, go to our pictures, select text, and now any pictures that had text in them are over here in the text tab. Again, if you want to pull these item text out, you certainly can. So again, this is just any pictures that had text in them. So if I select this, it'll try to pull out any legible words inside the pictures. And again, if I were to search for, say, CD www, I mean, that's kind of stands out a little bit. So let me copy that and go back to the dashboard, search artifacts, search for a word or a phrase, paste it, select OK. It says, okay, you've started searching. Check the task tab to view. So I'm searching for the data, opening up word or phrase. So the CD www is complete. I select it. And again, it brought me to that picture where we pulled out that CD www. So if you are looking to search for words from pictures, that is how that is done. Okay, moving into something different. Let's go to geolocation data again. One thing that I want to show you is how we can actually open up these geolocation on Google Earth. So we can right click and show checked items on Google Earth. And you can also export these items to a Google Earth format so you can open them up easily on any version of Google Earth if you're not connected to the internet. Okay, now moving into the chats. So if you've collected a mobile device, typically there are going to be some sort, let's go back into the structure, and I will go into the Android backup, select chats, and we have some sort of chat messages here. Let's hide contacts. All right, so the chat messages we have here between Emily and the owner of this account. Now, I can right click, add or remove filters, and I can filter by participants. I can search for specific text and messages. I can do a time range for a particular message that I'm looking from, whether it was coming from somebody or to somebody. Again, the incoming or outgoing, what data source it came from, was it marked for deletion or not, whether or not that had attachments. So all those filters can be applied from right here. Now, what I really like here is in the chats tab over here on the left hand side, I can right click, show contacts, and that's going to break out the different contacts that are listed in this chats database. So if I select one of these, it's going to bring me to messages only from Catherine. If I select one of these, it's going to show me only messages with Emily. So it's kind of a neat little way to break out contacts and see who has the most conversations based on the database that was acquired. Okay, so that is kind of a gist of what the artifacts tab looked like. Again, it's very detailed, like there's a lot of support for artifacts inside Belkasoft X. Now, some of the viewers I didn't get to show you were the plist viewer and the registry viewer, but you're not going to get the registry viewer with Xmobile version. Okay. Moving into the top of the screen is the mini timeline. So this is going to be for a very, very quick filter based on time. Again, if you want a more detailed time filter, add or remove filters and change the time in here. Now, so up in the mini timeline, say I want to look for something that only happened in 2015. So I can just do a click and drag, and it's going to filter for artifacts available in 2015. You'll notice there's little tildes next to the artifact number. That's because we didn't specify a specific date, so it's saying, hey, based on your selection above, there's roughly this many artifacts in that time frame. To clear this filter, single click inside the mini timeline, and everything comes back to how it was. Looking at the documents page that we're in right now, I can change the size of my icons. I can sort based on file modification time. Earliest first, sort by file name, sort by file size. I can change it from picture view like it's in now to grid view. And I can filter all of these by clicking this funnel. If I wanted to look at pictures more in depth, I could select a picture and it'll open up a built-in picture viewer. And you can also flip between your pictures from this mode as well. Again, I was just scrolling through a couple pictures in here and there wasn't really much to show you, but you can bookmark them from here. You can get your general properties for that artifact in here as well. So just another nice little viewer. An idea of what the mail viewer looks like. Inbox, outbox, spam, trash. You're collecting the whole mailbox whenever you acquire these as well. Okay, moving into the file system. The file system is just like pretty much any other file system viewer you've probably seen. If you were to break down the applications in the Android backup, you do that from here. So if I click this E01 case, if I want to see all artifacts under this E01, I'll simply do recursive view and I'll get everything under the E01 file, where you can filter for a specific name that you were looking for or a certain time or alternate data stream counts. We also have MFT info inside of the file system viewer. So if I want to analyze, say, an entire data set or an application for malware, spyware, you name it, you would just right click it and choose analyze with virus total. And again, you can do an entire data source or you can do just a specific file. It doesn't matter. It can all be done from here. Now, looking at the bottom of the file system viewer, you can see that we kind of have a map of where we're at inside the file system, which is awesome because if you're anything like me, you can easily get lost in the file system and forget where things were or where you were when you found something important. So this bottom screen here is going to be really helpful for you to jump back and forth as you need. Okay, moving into the connection graph. This is probably one of my favorite features within Belkasoft X. So looking at this now, it looks like a bunch of mumble jumble. It's just a bunch of stuff. It's really busy. So what I do from here is I turn the titles off so I can just see my nodes, and then I look for those connections. Who is who? Who's talking to who? So I can see now that I have these connections. So these 3 people, these 4. Okay, we got Mary Poppins, the professor, Jonathan Small, and Sebastian. So I see these connections, but it's still a little busy. So what I want to do now is talk to who is talking to Sebastian. So I'll come over here and I'll filter selected nodes and neighbors. And now I'm only going to see who's talking to Sebastian. Now I want to see top talkers. So let's go ahead and move this a little bit. Okay, you can see we weeded down the communications a little bit. Now, selecting a single node, I can see who it is, or I can go over here on the left-hand side, and this will give me all information it knows about Mary Poppins. Let's click Jonathan Small. Jonathan Small, it looks like we just have 2 email addresses. And for the professor, we pretty much have everything. Nicknames, UINs, phone numbers, emails, all in here. So enough on that. Let's go ahead and filter these a little bit more. Let's see who's had over 30 communications. Okay, professor. That looks like some sort of shared backup. And Mary Poppins. And Sebastian. Okay, so one thing that I can do here that's really neat, let me go ahead and pull this over, is I can select this link between Sebastian and the professor, and it'll show me all of the artifacts that are actually connecting these 2 individuals. So really, really cool here. And you can actually, from here, switch between, hey, they sent some chat messages, they sent some SMS messages, and you can actually dig into these messages directly from the connection graph. So really, really cool. You can check these. You can create reports directly from this location. You can actually get into the hex of the artifacts that you're looking at. So again, one of my favorite features inside of Belkasoft X. Jumping into bookmarks, if you were to bookmark something, let's go back and show you how to do that. I can right click and create a bookmark. So bookmark checked items, I can create one from here. I can add it to a pre-existing one that I already have. You can see we have a hotkey for creating a new bookmark. I can export these items. I can go to the parent of items. I can open the files up on the file system. I can open them up on the structure. I can remove bookmarks. I can analyze bookmarks. I can do pretty much anything I want by right-clicking an artifact inside of the artifacts viewer. Okay, going into the timeline. So timeline will look like this. It's not my favorite view, but it is a view, and you can right-click and see based on the time, what artifact you want to click on. I could select one of these and it would take me back to an artifacts tab. The view that I like in the timeline viewer is the list view. So going up to the upper right hand corner and selecting list, and it will open up just like this. And you can filter by data source, right? So if you want to know if there was a connection between data sources, like say you've acquired 2 mobile devices and you wanted to see if they had the same messages sent around the same time, you can easily do that. So we could filter by time, we could filter by data source. What I want to do is filter by time. So let's do UTC. Okay. Then you should be able to see a mix of all of the different data sources. So if you want to filter for a specific text inside of the timeline, you would do that from here by selecting that funnel. Again, you can select the different events, which ones you want to view inside the timeline, what data sources you want available inside the timeline, and if you want to filter for a specific time range, you can do that from here as well. So that is pretty much it when it comes to going over Belkasoft X. I could talk for hours, but I would rather you guys get as much information as you need in the shortest amount of time as possible. If you have any further questions or you want me to expand on anything, please let me know. I am available. I will pull up this slide again for my contact information. Okay, here under support is jl@belkasoft.com again, and the support phone line is my number. Please reach out if you need anything. And again, for any sort of sales questions such as quotes, trials, or additional pricing, please reach out to James Cooksey or Addison Cooksey at jcandac@belkasoft.com. Thank you.